Could you say your catchphrase?
Oh, yeah.
The do.
Hey, Wade, what's the sitch?
Oh!
Everything's messy when you start scratching at people's childhoods. Me representing a part of y'all's childhoods, if I start talking about it, it can offend people because they're like, wait, you're supposed to be this for me.
With what you know about Shia now, what would you have done differently at the time?
I can't speak to what would have helped, but if you would put 40-year-old Christy in 16-year-old Christy's body, I would give him like a big hug because he definitely needed one then.
Do you think what you were doing as a child affected your relationship with your mom?
Yeah, I didn't talk to my mom for like a year. God.
We sat down with the voice of Kim Possible, actress Christy Carlson Romano. You probably already know her from the Disney movies Cadet Kelly or Even Stevens, but now she's married with 2 kids and has been very open online about her experiences as a child actress. We talk with her about everything from getting scammed by a psychic to working with Shia LaBeouf, all on today's episode. Thank you for being here.
I am so excited to be here. This is very random and very cool. So thank you for having me.
I didn't realize until doing my research that you had been on Broadway and done so many Disney movies and TV shows, and you have 2 kids and you're married. Meeting you 15 minutes ago when you walked in the door, I was just like, I didn't know what to expect, but I was shocked by how like genuine you were. And like, it's cool to see someone so down to earth when they've done so many cool things.
For so long, your career, as we were talking before this started when you were 6.5 years old. Mm-hmm. What was your first gig?
Gosh, I did a toy commercial that was eventually, the toy was recalled.
Oh.
No.
Bummer. But you still got paid, right?
Yeah, of course. I think I sang like the jingle in it too, and it was called Warm and Tender. It was like one of those like, you know, like water heater bags that old people like put hot water in before they had electric warming blankets, which I now use every night. We won't talk about that.
I love a warm blanket.
Oh my God, I love that. Heating pads are the best. But this was like back when those didn't exist, so you would put hot scalding water in it. And if you did that, but make it the shape of a puppy that you would hug, what could go wrong, right? So that was why it was called Warm and Tender. And it was like, there was a cat warm and tender, and there was a dog warm and tender. Such a bad idea. But literally, you can go on YouTube and we can look, before I leave, you can look at this commercial.
I have to now.
Please do. You'll see little baby Christy.
Aww.
And yeah, that was my first commercial.
How'd that even get started? Like, was it something that your mom was like, I have this super talented, bubbly little girl that would be great at this? Or were you just like, Mom, I need to show the world how I can sing and act?
When it comes to like my mom as a stage parent, like, you know, I don't think that she ever wanted to be like, you know, a performer. She's actually kind of a wallflower. But when it came to me, and now I'm seeing this in my youngest, who's like trying to sing, and it's like, oh my God, this is triggering. But, you know, she really did have a connection with me with my talent, where she was like, well, I've given a lot to my 3 other children when it came to sports and even beauty pageants and dancing, which is kind of how I got my first manager at that young age. So I think she was really just trying to honor my interests and then go with that at like whatever speed it could go. And I think right place, right time, with being so young, there's a lot less competition. And we happen to live 70 miles from Manhattan, where I grew up in Connecticut. So it was kind of like a very easy, I say easy quotation marks, but the lift of being able to access opportunities was possible. Yeah.
So did you do school like online? Was there even online school at that time?
No, there was not online. I'm 40 and it was like I'm Oregon Trail generation, I think. And so basically like, I think it was like, I'm so old. Oh, sorry.
You're good. We'll bleep it out.
I'm so old. But there was a fax machine involved. Let's just put it that way. Initially.
They were faxing your homework?
Yeah, there was literally like some sort of a fax thing where you'd get your assignments. And there was a pager. My mom, when we would get paged by our agent or manager, whether I got a call back or something, she'd go to a payphone and she would like call and she'd be like, you got the job. Or,
that's so classic.
Yeah, it was really, really wild when I think back to it now. But really, we did go, I ended up going to a school called Professional Children's School, where a lot of celebrities went. So Scarlett Johansson was in my class, and actually Jack Antonoff, who's like Taylor Swift's like producer, he was in my graduating class. And it was just a tremendous, like when you see they give you like newsletters of how our alumni are doing, but it's like ridiculous. Like,
Here, like,
the people that are like
they're
on the
number
alumni.
one.
Yeah.
Everything.
It's literally crazy. It's like Jenna Malone and Macaulay Culkin and Kieran Culkin, and like the whole Culkin family went there. So it's just this really amazing, good school that accommodated for professional children. So eventually when I started working for Disney, I was about 14, and then I moved out there. They picked up the show around 16. I turned 16 the day we started filming. And yeah, I mean, it's wild, but I was able to make it work, and then ended up going to Ivy League school.
Wow.
Okay.
Or university.
Winding it back a bit to all the super crazy successful people that were in your class, is it hard when you look at all these people from your class that are Scarlett Johansson, Jack Antonoff, all these people that are going bonkers in their careers, and is it hard not to compare yourself to that?
I think I fell into that trap for years of like, even when I was working at Disney, there being, immense success for people like Shia, Raven, Hillary, like they were all sort of my colleagues, and we all took very different roads, mentally, spiritually, financially, like everything was so different about us. We were very different brands, genders, races, just like the different infrastructures of our families. You know what I'm saying? Like Shia's family, we know, was troubled from the jump. And then Hillary had a really, really great family structure to a lot of degrees about what that would look like for her. And I know her sister, and I think they're a really tight-knit family that probably helped in times of there being sort of confusion and fame, and financial success, I think, has a lot to do with that, the outcomes of that. So for me, I was always told that education was the most important thing. So when I turned 18, Even Stevens was ending. We had done one of the Disney movies. And then right like after that movie like wrapped, I had the opportunity to go to Barnard, which is at Columbia University. And so I was like, either I do this or I stay in LA. I think I had like a pilot with like Fox or something like that, and it didn't end up getting picked up. So I was just kind of like, okay, I'm going to go to college and have this quote unquote normal life all of a sudden. And none of that happened for me. The transition of that was like very strange for me. And so at that point when they were like calling me to be like, hey, would you be interested in being Belle in Beauty and the Beast on Broadway? I was like, oh great, like I can go escape to the theater. Mm-hmm. And so I guess when you're talking about the comparison thing, circling back to this, I think just everybody has their own journey. And for a long time, like you tend to use other people's journeys as a means to motivate yourself through shame. Mm-hmm. And, when you work super young, like that shame of not getting the part or not succeeding, it is so loaded for you because that success means, oh, I have so much approval in my parents' eyes, and like all of their time that they sacrificed is now going to amount to something. Mm-hmm. So it's a very thick, complex situation. I'm grateful that now I have the distance from it to be like, I just hope everyone's doing okay. But I will say I wouldn't want to be in Shia's shoes because he's had so much that he's had to work past. And now I've been sober 8 years from alcohol, and everything. So it's just kind of like,
Congrats.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Round of applause for that.
Having a baby does that. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So,
So,
Oh yeah, you kind of got forced to be sober.
Forced, exactly. But no, it's just the most amazing thing. So I just look at other people. I'm like, you know what? This is all happening for some reason that we can't understand. I've got to focus on myself.
The sobriety thing, I'm curious, drinking, did it become a problem because of comparison? Did it become a problem?
That's a great point.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
You kind of talked about how like you want your parents' time to amount to something. Like, do you think that you felt pressure as a kid pretty consistently as you were doing all these jobs while it was maybe fun for you? Like, also pressure involved?
100%. I think that, child performers, or what I call them as high performing children, because that could also be athletes, dancers, musicians, like any child that's kind of growing up in a very like highly competitive environment kind of has the same outcome in terms of them being like, okay, this is my identity. But at the same time, time is elusive because you're not thinking of your childhood in days, you're thinking of it in accomplishments.
Yeah, I feel like for me, being just your average kid, like my marker was summer break. And so with school, like it's like, okay, that's another school year. And you guys didn't have that marker.
Yeah, I mean, summer break, which meant that you were on hiatus, at least from when I was working with Disney, would mean that, hey, I hope Disney gives me a movie to shoot. So like, for example, my movie that I got to shoot was Cadet Kelly, and that was in like the summer of the second season or something like that, right? I was like 16 or 17 at that point. And it was really cool because I felt like, wow, like I'm doing something other than the Even Stevens show. And then after that, Kim Possible kind of happened. So I just think like you start to think of everything as, I would call it like a transactional mindset where it's just like, okay, well, what's the next thing? You as kids shouldn't be thinking like that all the time. I think it can kind of destroy the joy of childhood to some degree. I mean, it also offers, like I said, like I don't want to come off bitter. I think people on the internet are like, oh, she's bitter, or that she doesn't have this person's career, and it's like, it's really not that. I'm now 40 and it's like perspective is so rewarding. And so the more questions you can ask yourself or the more conversations you can have with folks, this is just what it is. I do find it really interesting to talk about, to be honest.
Oh, me too, especially with how much the media has been bringing these things to light as of recently. I was thinking there's been a long conversation about Jeanette McCurdy's book, and it makes me curious, like, do you think that what you were doing as a child affected your relationship with your mom or your...
Yeah, sadly, my mom and I have struggled in the past. Like I think like where I was extremely compliant, quite like Jeanette. Like when I did a YouTube video on my podcast Vulnerable, which I have actually stopped doing because I felt like there was a tremendous amount of pressure for me to do everything right as a sort of quote unquote advocate. I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like I'm not representing the community the way that you can't be all things to everyone. And therefore I was like, I need to just take care of myself and take care of my family. And like, that's where my focus and my sobriety. Like, I think that has a lot to do with everything that I've done. And even talking about this stuff is because when you're sober, you have to have like a tremendous amount of accountability for the things you've done. And so I've tried to do that, but again, everything's messy when you start scratching at people's childhoods. And it sometimes I think even me representing a part of y'all's childhoods, if I start talking about it, it can offend people because they're like, wait, but you're supposed to be this for me, because if you're not, then what does that mean? Because I used to watch your show.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I used to watch your show because I felt really bad about being bullied. But then what does it mean that you were being bullied by It's just like, it kind of breaks my heart when I think about it now that like I would be maybe taking that away from people, because my fans to me are always the kids that, watch the shows. So
I've never thought of it that way. And that's so interesting how, yeah, I mean, people view you as the character that you played, and that's how they knew you. That's how they had a relationship with you through the screen. So
because they're kids, it's not like they're adults. Like they can't be like, oh yeah, like Jason Momoa, he's obviously not Poseidon.
Well, so one of my first memories of like going to the zoo as a kid, I remember getting so excited when I came across the naked mole rats because of Kim Possible.
Yay!
I was like, I know that. I was like, that's on TV, and like, awesome. I want to go look at the naked mole rats.
Funny.
That's so cool.
And so like,
they're really ugly.
They are. They're so weird.
Such a random. Like,
right?
I never thought about how random that is.
I think I've asked the creators, Bob and Mark, about it, and they were like, we were just looking for some sort of an animal because it's Disney, and like we just thought of something that this guy Ron would have that's not like your typical pet. And I think they thought of like ferret and like guinea pig.
Matt was a ferret kid, so
I did have a ferret.
Ferrets are actually quite cool.
I taught my ferret how to roll over.
Yeah.
He could jump through hoops.
Yes.
I wasn't able to have a dog as a kid, so my ferret was my dog.
Honestly, like I actually would absolutely have a ferret. They're quite clean. Was it clean?
They can smell. And there was a spot in my room where you knew where the ferret would pee all the time because it just turned yellow in the carpet,
I dated a guy who had roommates that had this ferret, and they never named the ferret. They just called it Ferret, and they would have it drink beer and stuff like that. And I would always be like, guys, you guys are really wild. But the ferret was happy and it lived a long life. So I don't know.
Wow. Okay.
The ferret never had a sobriety. I feel like naked mole rat might have been because like for like kids, anything with the word naked was just like,
oh, that's
funny.
what it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Naked.
Exactly.
That definitely was what it was. I was like, it's naked.
When people approach you in public, what is the job that they like bring up the most do you think?
I think impossible at this
Okay.
point, which is really strange because when you think of voice actors, you don't think of their faces. You
Yeah.
don't think of their
You're
faces.
right.
I've interviewed plenty of them. I had a podcast with Will Friedle, who was Unstoppable's voice, and he's Batman's voice, and he was on Boy Meets World. And like, it was called I Hear Voices, and it was legitimately a podcast. We did it on iHeart a couple years ago, and it was like we interviewed Eric, oh my God. See, I'm not even remembering his last name. Eric Bauza. Eric Bauza, you guys would probably not know, but he's like literally the voice of every Looney Tune now. He's the voice of the rabbit. Who's the rabbit?
Wait, this is so
Bugs
bad.
Bunny?
Bugs
Yes.
Bunny.
He's the voice of Bugs Bunny. He's the voice
Okay.
of like 5 others, 12 other, and he gets like, literally he has like Emmy Awards and like,
Wow.
I'm saying this guy is the most massive, amazing, and a great person. But it's like you would never know these people's faces. However, they know my face. And the reason they know my face, because they don't realize it, because they may be on the younger side, is because all the stuff that I had done, Cadet Kelly or even Steve, it's like all of that stuff kept playing in sort of the world. And so whether it was a commercial or whether it was their older sibling that was watching it,
Yeah.
it was kind of like my face kind of creeping in somehow.
Yeah.
So it's that familiarity. So when I meet folks, it's like they go back in their minds and they regress to being those kids.
Oh, yeah.
So that's why I'm always like, I love them so much, because it's like it's literally like seeing people turn into kids immediately.
Aw, that's really sweet. This episode is sponsored by one of our all-time favorite baby brands, Dreamland Baby. Both of our babies use their dream-weighted sleep sacks and have used them literally
For the past 2
since
years
they've
almost.
existed.
Yeah, because we started with the Dreamland sleep sacks with Griffin. Now Augie uses them. We give them out to our friends as gifts when they have babies. They're just great because they kind of feel like you're getting a warm hug while you stay asleep. And the technology used in the Dreamland sleep sacks helps your baby stay asleep longer and fall asleep faster, which is amazing when you're a parent, because not getting sleep with kids is one of the most frustrating things. And so having anything to help your kids sleep better is the move.
Basically, it's a sleep sack that's gently weighted on the top, so your baby can still roll around. If they're a tummy sleeper, they can still sleep on their tummy, stand up, even walk in it. They're made with 100% soft organic cotton, so it's a great material. And yeah, they have a 2-way zipper, so you can do easy nighttime changes. If they need a diaper change, you can just throw them in the washing machine, and they're still good wash after wash after wash. We wash them constantly. Like I said, we've passed the same sleep sacks from Griffin to Augie, and they're extremely durable, and we really believe in them. Deeper sleep for you and for baby. It's a win-win, win-win-win. So go to dreamlandbabyco.com and enter our code UNPLANNED at checkout to receive 20% off site-wide and free shipping. This offer is for new and existing customers.
Okay, I totally wouldn't ask you this if we just like ran into you in the street, but because it's on a podcast and everyone can enjoy this moment, could you say your catchphrase?
Oh, yeah, of course.
You know, the do.
Let's see. Then I did something recently for somebody, and they were like, "That's not the voice." I was like, "Okay, guys, come on, stop being critical."
You're like, let me try again.
Jeez, it's been a while. Like, we don't have the reboot like happening. So, okay, let's see. Hey, Wade, what's the sitch?
Wow!
I hope that was good enough for the internet.
Oh my
That's
God.
crazy.
Thank you for doing that. I'm sure.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Did people
I
ask
actually
you
really
that?
miss doing the voice. I love her voice. It's so clean and like pure and just like positive. Like, I think there was something about her character that the reason I don't mind talking about it is because she's just such a good influence on like everybody.
Yeah.
There's like nothing problematic.
Especially for like young girls. I think seeing a girl that's just so strong and kicking butt and
That's so
independent,
true.
like I think that's cool to see for young girls, young women.
I definitely was doing like somersaults in my grandma and grandpa's hallway and stuff, like after watching it.
I thought she was so cool.
She
As
was.
a little boy, I was like, I want to be Kim. She's awesome.
She was very, like, people could identify with her and it didn't have to be boy or girl. And also, like, the power dynamic between her and Ron, it was just different. And then the fact that they ended up dating was like a really big deal in like the whole Disney animation world. So, and one of the really crazy things about Kim was that she was one of the first Disney characters to get a change of outfits, because so many of our young watchers were like, we want Kim to wear this, we want Kim to wear that. So finally they gave her different outfits like later into the seasons. And you'll see her wearing different things, but she really only had originally she had her mission outfit, her one high school outfit, and her cheerleading outfit. But then they really started making her change her outfits. And it was like, how do you animate that? You know, that's really detailed work. So and it's kind of nerdy, but.
That's so cool. How did you think about voice acting? Like, because before you'd been acting, was it like, wait, I want to be on screen? Or was it like, this is a really cool, fun new project and a way to explore acting in general.
Having the theater background and using my voice for so many years, it was sort of just a very natural fit for me to be doing that. Being a singer, it was a really good time for me to learn, especially at, I think I was like 16 at the time. So it was kind of like, how do I learn how to use this side of my voice as a talent, as a feature? And while she wasn't very different, the fact that I can still do her voice at 40 and I've, had a lot of miles on my vocal cords, it's like, there's something to the training that I had early on. They were like, hey, no, do it like this. And this is the intention of why she sounds like that. So there actually is quite much more to Kim than people would think. Somebody was saying, I think they were like, that's her customer service voice. And I was like, I guess I could see that.
You're like, it works.
That's funny.
It works.
And landing that role, that's such a big deal. So how did that all come about, becoming Kim and getting that part?
Yeah, Kim was basically just synergistic from Disney Channel. I think they did actually have a lot of people. I believe Allison Hannigan was one of the options, and then she ended up becoming the mom in the live action movie, and I find that really funny. But I think they just vibed with the fact that I was the girl's age. You know what I mean? I was a couple years older than what she was, and I had some sensibilities that made more authentic sense to her, and I had a sense of like sarcasticness in my voice that could also be not off-putting and fun when it came to Will's voice being very slapsticky and crazy. So I was kind of the straight person. And then we worked a lot on Kim's, like, we called it stealth mode. So when she'd have to be in mission mode, I'd have to be like really intense. And so that was something we worked on a lot.
That's so wild. Is the time commitment, like, for you, it's less on a voice acting job rather than your traditional?
Yeah, because it's kind of like podcasting. Like, you can batch content if you needed to. So like they'll do, I think for the most, gosh, I don't even remember, this is way too long ago, but like, I think you can do multiple episodes in one day of sessions if you had to, but you can certainly, even if it's not more than one episode, if say you do like a secondary character that doesn't have as many, they can batch episodes up. And then if they come back with like ADR work where it's like they've animated some of it and now they just need, extra oomphs and whatever's, you can do a ton of different episodes, but technically you're a session performer, so there's not that much money in it. People don't realize this, but there's not a lot of money in it.
Dang.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought that.
Shoot. Okay. I would have hoped that you would have been rolling it from Kim.
No, I know. It's kind
your
of the
Kim
honor.
checks.
You have to believe in the honor of it, the legacy of it. That's why I think I am proud of it, because it's like, my goodness, like, how are we still talking about it, right? And it had 4 seasons.
Yeah.
So the impact is just really cool. And I mean, there's obviously been talk about there being a reboot. There was some serious talk about there being a reboot. To the specifics of that, I'm not allowed to talk about. But at the same time, it's also kind of a very corporate thing where, how many times can we express to the powers that be that, like, it's still relevant, like that people still care, and that now those people have kids and their daughters who have red hair. This just happened to me like 48 hours ago when I was at a baseball game. There's this little girl. She's got beautiful, beautiful red hair. I think she was about like 11 years old. And she's like, oh my gosh. The mom was like, she was KP like 3 Halloweens ago. We're always trying to find red-haired girls for her to be. And she just had the best time. And when she pulled up the picture for me, and now this is a kid who didn't, watch the show when it was originally on. She just had the biggest, coolest, like, fun smile on her face, because I think there's something about cosplaying as KP that makes girls feel like truly, I don't know, like empowered.
Yeah.
Something about, like you're saying, it's like you just were trying to be her and pretend to be her. So.
Okay, even the movie's Cadet Kelly, right? Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Because Abby immediately was like, I knew that movie. It made me want to be like a tough girl.
I tried to pretend I had the rifle.
It's true. Those rifles hurt, man. When they hit you, those rifles were rough.
Just
I still
throw
remember
them in the air.
because they were weighted with like metal, like certain, like the butt of the rifle would be like pretty heavy. In general, they were weighted, so you'd really have to know how to throw them up. And we got bruises and we got hit a lot. Yeah.
So you did all that yourself?
Well, yeah. I think we had stunt people go in and do it for us, and those young women were gymnasts. But the guys that you would see in our squad or battalion, they were actual military like
Oh,
Academy guys. Yeah.
Disney was
Junior
like, we're
ROTC.
getting legit.
Yeah, they were legit, but we filmed in Canada, which was really random.
Oh,
Super random.
fun.
That
though.
probably made a lot of women want to join the military, seeing you.
You think so?
I don't know.
I wonder.
I had never seen stuff like I mean, I grew up in a small town that we didn't have like that's like drill.
Yes, drill team.
Drill team. We didn't have drill team or anything like that. And so I was just like, I didn't have a rifle clearly. I was just like taking the end of the broom, just
I
like,
hope not.
You would practice with the broom after
I would
watching.
try to do it.
That's so funny.
I'm telling
is
you.
funny.
I watched a lot of TV at Grandma and Grandpa's and I would just
Your
get
grandma and
inspired.
grandpas were like, they were lenient with the TV. They were like,
Oh,
watch
yeah.
whatever Disney you want.
Oh, well, I mean, if it's Disney, they were like, yeah, it's fine.
I'm much more, I think, particular about what my kids are watching, and I don't need it to be entertaining. I'd rather, if they're going to have that, like, not that I'm all that strict about it, but if they're going to have the screen time, the older they get, the more I want them to have something with like a lot of value, like a lot of purpose, like not just entertaining, but educational. And so in some ways I can understand why Disney's done these like massive franchises like Zombies and the things that have music and stuff, because I think that's really great for kids to be like enjoying the music aspects of it too.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so curious. What are your thoughts on current Disney Channel?
Disney Channel does not exist the way that it did. It is pretty much very different because it's called Disney Branded Partners now. Because of the streaming, I think that it's kind of altered the ecosystem of the way that they can have ratings and stuff like that. So they're very savvy to all of that, obviously. But then from what I know internally, they have these amazing, what they call tent poles franchises like Zombies and Descendants, and those things are geared towards utilizing all of the aspects of Disney as a like massive company, whether it's like the parks or the toys and stuff like that. So I think that it's a very different like era of Disney Channel. And who even knows? Like they may get back to what we used to do, you know? But what's cool is that, you know, Ryan Merriman from The Luck of the Irish, like some little movie that now kids.
Oh, that was.
Did you ever crush on him?
I just loved all those like Disney Channel movies.
Yeah, I know. And it's like all those movies, those kids are
Ice
still
Princess. I
watching
always
them.
say this. Ice Princess changed my life.
You have said that. I've heard you say that multiple
There's
times.
so many that just like. I don't know. I think it's like actually so true because like Kim Possible, like all these, even Stephen's movie, like they just play on your imagination in such a like I don't know. I just remember watching them and just feeling like so deeply moved. I want to watch them now as an
That
adult.
makes
and
me so
see-
happy.
Like really, like I remember I would watch it and be like, okay, Blake. Okay, we're just gonna pretend we're ice skating. I know we're in my grandpa's backyard, but like.
Aw. So y'all have been together a while.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, no.
Wait, Blake's your brother?
Blake's yeah. We've been together a while, but like I wasn't there.
Guys, it's literally, can we say how late it is right now?
Too late.
10:09.
Okay, it's 10 o'clock at night, and I was literally just with my kids at a pizza parlor. I'm so sorry. The Blake thing was not intended at all.
Literally,
You're good.
do not
I'm like,
worry
what's
about it.
happening right now?
My brain is never.
My brain
okay.
is not. Yes, of course. But you and your brother would pretend to be Ice Princess?
I would try to wrap him into anything
I
because
love
those
that.
Disney Channel movies, like those are so nostalgic for me.
The
and-
worlds are very rich.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that I think like when you were growing up, the worlds were like much more like in your backyard. So
That's so true.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Because
it
now
was
it's a little bit more.
magical and like
Yeah.
actual Disney like magical lore. And
That's
so
true.
I get it. Like we love it, but I just have to be a little bit more specific about like, well, what is this movie and do I have time to watch it?
Do your kids? Sorry, last.
Oh, you're good. You
I'm
can do your
so
thing.
curious if
I
your
love
girls,
it. I
if your
love
girls
it.
watch Kim
Am I
Possible.
I'm like, am I interesting? I
You're
feel like
so interesting.
Come on, you're Kim Possible.
Oh, okay,
Come on.
great. I'm glad you guys.
do your daughters watch Kim Possible?
I want them to watch it so badly, but I wouldn't push it on them. And so every now and then I'll be like, hey guys, look at that on the streaming. Because my avatar is Kim Possible, like admittedly.
Of course it is.
Of course. I was like, well, do they even have it? And then when they had it, I was like, well, I mean, I'm not going to not have KP as the avatar for our Disney Plus. But yeah, I don't force it on them.
Have you ever considered dyeing your hair red?
I did dye it once and it was awful.
Really?
Oh,
Really?
it was not
I
good.
feel like
It
it
was not
worked.
good. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I
I
mean,
have
you
like
are
pale
Kim.
skin,
Yeah.
and you think, but no, I think like I don't know. And now I have like I've tried the freckle stuff. Like I've tried the freckle makeup, and it's cute, but like, you know, I don't know if I have what it takes to be actually redheaded.
Please tell me though that you've been Kim for Halloween before.
I've like cosplayed her in like TikToks and stuff too.
That's
like
cool.
I've gone for it and had fun with it. And now I think I'm just kind of like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to like try to cosplay anymore. I think I just have to leave it to the young ones at the Comic-Cons and, you know, just see the fun pictures and stuff. Every Halloween though, I will say this, every Halloween when people tag me, I take so much joy in like reposting their stuff.
Aww.
So when Halloween comes around, like send me or tag me, call me or beat me your KP, you know, content, and I will repost it.
That's sweet.
So a question I've been dying to ask you, because I was a little kid in Missouri seeing all these kids who were, you know, were acting on Disney. Mm-hmm. And to me, that was the dream. Like if I could have been on Disney, my life would have been perfect and it would have been the coolest thing ever. And so I'm so curious, as someone who literally lived that life, you were in all the movies and the TV shows, and like that was your childhood, and you did Broadway too. And so what was that like? Was it everything that people make it out to be? Was it a high that, you know, you look back on, you're like, man, that was the craziest high of, you know, of my life, of getting to have all these opportunities and playing all these roles?
I do think it was an amazing high. And I think that I still get to reap the benefits from that. Like, I think if I didn't acknowledge that, like, the nostalgia that I've played into with my podcast network, or like my content that I've made on YouTube and TikTok and stuff like that, like my fan base essentially being in conversation with that past, I'm constantly trying to understand what that means. And like, okay, have I talked too much about it? And are people frustrated with that? And it's like, okay, but then they still want me to do it. And so I'm in constant conversation with the past. And sometimes I've called it narcissistic purgatory, because it's like, I have to talk about myself, but then it's like, but you want to grow too. So, I mean, there's, you know, who's doing a really great job of this right now, and I've mentioned her, how big of a fan I am, is Keke Palmer. Keke Palmer is killing the game with how everybody has known her for a long, long time, but she's just like her own person, and she does her own thing, and she has her podcast where she talks about her own points of view and her own interests. So I think that it's really hard to make this like transition, but when you're in the middle of it, of course it's the dream. There's so many kids that don't get that opportunity. And so you are very aware of how many kids did not make it that far.
Yeah.
And so you do get this like kind of like bravado, this kind of confidence about you while you're working. And so that kind of keeps you high for as long as you're working. And so like, yeah, when you stop working, you kind of get a little bit confused about like, well, who am I now? That happens. And then it happens even more if it's not gonna, you know, if it doesn't get handled correctly. So it's just very natural. To me, that sounds natural, but to everybody else, they're like, oh no, that's like a statistic.
Thank you to Rocket Money for sponsoring this portion of today's episode. You guys, have you ever gotten on the phone to try to negotiate a bill and then you panic because you realize you don't have the best negotiating skills?
No,
Guess
I don't
what?
ever get on the phone and negotiate a bill. It's too nerve-wracking for me.
Well, the good news is Rocket Money can do that for you, because they did it for our home security system, and they lowered our bill from, I believe it was $50 down to $30. $20 a month. That's $240 a year.
Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions also. It can monitor your spending and help lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. It's just a very user-friendly way to tangibly see where your money's going, especially with those subscriptions. Those can add up so much until your monthly expenses are getting really, really, really high. And so it cancels the ones that you don't want anymore and can negotiate the ones that you need to keep.
And it's nice just to see in one place, oh, okay, this is how much money I spent last month. This is what I'm on track to spend this month. And it helps you set goals for your finances. It helps you see what you spent last year, and it puts it all into pie charts and graphs and makes it very user friendly, so you don't have to take all your credit card data and go open a spreadsheet and try to do all that spreadsheet stuff on your own. No, Rocket Money makes it very easy.
And it has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's features. So get your savings today. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/unplanned. That's rocketmoney.com/unplanned. rocketmoney.com/unplanned.
How much did fear of not getting that next role or that next part make its way into the moment? Because I've noticed even in my life, like fear creeps in and almost like robs you of the joy.
Definitely. I think fear contributed to me sort of like, drinking, and like essentially like not taking myself seriously enough and not honing into my craft and like managing my finances. Like everything about my quality of life was like lackluster because I was just not fully understanding my value. Because I think that when you understand your value, it doesn't really matter. And I've heard you talk about this too in the past. You can put your entire self into your career, I think you said. And then it's like, if you fail at that, then what do you have underneath it? This is literally what I was driving up here listening to this episode. And I was like, I heard him say this and I was like, oh yeah, like I totally know how that is. So that's it. You just got to you have to build a life outside of yourself. So
why do you think you turned to drinking? Did you have good community around you? Did you have hobbies outside of performing and acting? What did your life outside of your career look like? And did that affect the drinking too?
Like yes.
No, I did not have a good community around me. I wouldn't say I had people that were actively like, I never used like hard drugs. Like that was never my thing. But being out at nightclubs to be able to be seen and then feel sort of like you had community with other people that went out, but then also you never went to high school, so you kind of want to feel like you're popular. It's just like this weird toxic moment in your life where you're like, well, I want to be young Hollywood. I'm supposed to be young Hollywood. I got to go to Hyde and I got to be seen by paparazzi, and I didn't get a Maxim cover, which means I can't get the new like Robert Rodriguez movie. So it's like all of this like spiral, and then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So basically it's just not fun. And then no, you don't have any hobbies. I mean, like I literally learned to ride a bike, I think for a commercial or something like that. Like I hadn't really been an expert bike rider, but like I had to really kind of get on a bike and like be better at riding a bike because I had an opportunity to do it in a commercial. That was like as a kid. So like a lot of the things that I did, my mom would say, well, Christy, this is like you cross training, she called it. And we can put it as special skills on your resume. It was never like, are you interested in doing this? It was always like, oh, cool. I can say that I did horseback riding and I can say I did this. And so it was like, the most interesting man in the world from that like alcohol commercial. There's like that guy or some tequila guy who's the most interesting man in the world. And it's like, you're the most interesting kid in the world because you could do all these like random things, but not
juggle.
that well. Not that well, right?
Did you learn to juggle?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Don't bring it up.
That
Don't bring it up.
That was a skill that I was a jester in a community performance.
Wait, really?
Of Once Upon a Mattress. So
Well,
So you can juggle?
I could juggle.
That's amazing.
It wasn't on Broadway though. I like all the shows that I did were not like, I feel like your resume as acting as a kid was Broadway this, and mine was like the Kirkwood Community Theater.
Well, they say there's no small parts, only small actors. So that's amazing that you did all that.
But okay, where was I literally going? Oh, my question though was, okay, do you think that you getting like focusing so much on your career, like everything that you did, career, do you think you almost like dug your own hole in a way because since you were so laser focused on that, because that's all that mattered, you didn't like build up community around you. So it wasn't like you had crappy friends. It was like you weren't putting the time into the relationships like you needed to. So it was a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and what I find interesting for you is that you guys met pursuing, the arts, and you had each other to kind of like navigate through whether or not you wanted to do that. And then we were talking before we were filming and recording, and you had suggested to her that like, okay, well, this quality of life may not be the most sustainably like happy, like if you had to be away from each other and then you're on set with another person, then you have to kiss that other person or whatever it is, it just doesn't feel right. So it is very difficult at a certain point for you to be like, what am I doing with my life? And then you keep it, but there's a big difference between being conditioned over your entire childhood to be compliant for a certain kind of life and like then doing it on maybe a more minor scale where you're like, okay, well, this is regional. Like you're saying it's regional, but like it still matters. It matters just as much because when I take my kids to see the Nutcracker, it's the highest point of connectivity to the arts for me and my daughters right now, because I'm not putting them in the industry. But it matters so much to me because young people need the arts. I'm not saying like, hey, don't act, like don't do this, don't do that. Like, of course young people need the arts, but it doesn't necessarily need to be at such a level that it's like it's going to take over your entire life forever and ever. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I'm saying, like, it was great that you guys had each other as community to like navigate through that transition, but that's not the case for most individuals that are on the level that me or other people were like at that time.
So when I was a kid, I begged my mom, like crying, after I saw Peter Pan at the Muni, this professional theater, summer theater in St. Louis. I was 4, and I like begged her.
4?
I really wanted to get into arts. Like my dad played baseball in college. My older brother was big into sports, and I love sports. I played sports too, but that was when I knew that I really wanted to get into the arts. And so, of course, my mom got me into it, and I did that for a while. But like, what do parents need to know that have kids that really want to pursue that? Because I think you've stated before that you don't. Yeah, you're kind of keeping your kids out of Hollywood and all of that. So what do parents need to know if their kid truly wants to perform?
I mean, there's resources. That's the good news, is that things are, starting to come to light, and I think people are speaking up, and I think that's really great, because I think that we're at a time where there will be change and a lot of positive growth from that, because there's a lot of people that care. I've done a lot of work with the Looking Ahead program, so I'll shout that out, because it's a resource for once you become a part of SAG. And SAG and Equity as well. They have the same program. Equity is for those who are kids that are in the theater arts, right? And if you're touring, there's a lot that goes on mentally for those young kids. And it's like, I was one of those kids. So I'm really glad that this program exists, because it really plugs the parents in to other parents, as well as the kids into kids of their same age bracket. So this program is amazing. It's just gone national. That's what I would suggest to other parents. But my overall note to parents would be to go slow. Like, don't go fast just because there's an opportunity in front of you. Like, that opportunity may come, it may go. But the people that I found that had the most like well-adjusted kids were the ones that had parents like Jonathan Lipnicki. He was the little boy from Jerry Maguire. And he did the Little List Vampire, and he was like, he had this full career, and then he went away, but then he lived his life, and he came back, and he's like a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but he still loves acting, and he does it because he loves the craft, and it wasn't sullied for him. And he's had to deal with quite a lot of people being like, you used to be cute, like that was, I think, a podcast or a movie he had, where he was like, people literally, like, I'll be in an audition and they're like, oh, you're that kid from Jerry Maguire. You used to be cute. Aww. And it's like, as a man with like a black belt or like a double black belt in jiu-jitsu, it's like, he's just like, he's a badass, Yeah. But he's grown past that. And he's really well adjusted. And obviously his money was invested wisely because his parents were CPAs. They didn't give up their careers and throw all their money into that one child in case he had a brother or sister or whoever. So you've got to take it slow and then just go from there.
So I'm guessing you think it's really dangerous if parents, are reliant on their kid or give up their careers to fully divulge into their child and helping them build their acting career, just because, I mean, if you think about it, right? Like if you're reliant on your child, then it's almost like they can't stop. They have to keep working, because if that's how you make
what's
money.
What's the exit strategy? Yeah. I mean, I can guarantee you this: if you're the type of stage parent that ends up relying on your on your child, it will not end well. And whether you think you got it or not, like if you really think that you can get you can keep your child sort of addicted or enmeshed, as they would say, enmeshed and codependent on your approval, like, they're going to grow up someday and they're going to resent a lot. So I would say do the work on yourself as a parent first, because I'm a parent. And while, I mean, my youngest is starting to show signs of wanting to sing, and I'm like, okay, what do we do? I'm like freaking out. I'm not saying that I have all the answers. I'm certainly not. But I pray for stage parents. I truly do, because it's got to be really hard for your child to come to you and have that dream. Like as a 4-year-old, your mom was like, okay, but you probably like, you like the color black right now and everything's black. Like kids change their minds so quickly that sometimes you're like, well, I don't know if this is serious or not. We have to wait it out.
I noticed you mentioned on your podcast, I was listening to it, you were talking about how now children that are on these shows and in these movies, they have a business independent of the show through social media. If they post, if they have an Instagram or a TikTok, which I think is so cool. And you were mentioning how, they can monetize those platforms and use them as leverage to, build wealth or build a career for themselves. But at the same time, I was just thinking about this. They're able to see all the comments. They're able to see everything that people are saying about them. And so I'm so curious, when you look back at your childhood, do you wish that you would have had social media because you could have had more of a business move in that regard and built up a personal brand outside of Kim Possible, outside of Disney? Or are you thankful that you didn't have to see the comments?
I'm thankful that I didn't have to see the comments.
Okay.
1,000%. I think that was one of the biggest privileges of this experience, was that I didn't have that. And how I've navigated social media now is just kind of what I've had to do to like I said, deliver for my fan base on talking about nostalgia. Like that's not who I am necessarily. Those aren't my every thought and detail and every choice that I've made in my life. I'm pretty much an open book. I think maybe too open, but like it's all sort of an exercise in the accountability that I had mentioned before, but also like trying to get to know myself and connect with people. And like I've always tried to kind of have community. Like that's like the through line of my book that will be coming out eventually. And then like just like me, who I am, I'm like looking for friendship. Like I'm a golden retriever at the heart of it. So I'm a tryhard, like theater, like you're theater kids. So it's like theater kids are these like performative, lovable, goofy, try-hard type people. We can't do anything. It's just who we were built to be. And so it's always nice to meet other people. But the world that we live in is really, really harsh. And there's a lot of people online that like really thrive. Other podcasters, other YouTubers that just thrive on hatred. And it's like, I know that maybe I've been critical and like said things that were about pop culture and stuff like that and celebrities, but mostly that's just musings. Like I've never gone after somebody in a way that was like, I'm going to take this person down. Yeah. It's just seemingly like I do see that like these young kids have to be so aware of that I've heard that even people who aren't celebrities don't even like dance at nightclubs anymore. They don't even have fun at festivals because they're like, oh no, someone's gonna like take a video of me and I'm gonna become a meme.
No,
so,
that's
like,
really sad.
They don't dance anymore. They don't like, the younger people like don't have that kind of like levity in their lives anymore. It's sad. So
that is sad. You talking about being an open book, something that I really admire is your vulnerability, which is ironic given your podcast name, but about your finances, because I feel like you speaking on that, it was so surprising to hear, but also I feel like there's so many people that have found themselves in your exact position that you're bringing light to and honestly awareness of. Kind of talk about where you found your finances as people are seeing your name everywhere in all these movies, like where you found yourself just years after that.
So the crazy thing is that I've actually made a lot more money as a social media person than I ever made as a Disney person. Like, I mean, it's just amazing what social media has done for creators and like the ability for you to be, like we had said, like to kind of like lock into something, to be able to empower yourself. And one, you're authentic, but also you're experimenting with formats. When I started YouTube, gosh, like, I don't know, like 5, 6 years ago, it was like I was doing a throwback cooking show where I was like inviting like people from, and it was COVID at the time. So it was even crazier to even be like, hey, we haven't seen each other since we were 14 or whatever. Like, do you want to come to my house in Orange County and like cook a naco? Like, it was just like,
cook a naco.
Yeah, it was like so random. But it worked at the time. It just worked. And so I changed formats a lot, and it's kind of fun that like somewhere along the line you find your way to, I don't know, monetizing stuff. Like it's not easy. It's not for the faint of heart, but you can do it. And so I've definitely empowered my finances through doing my own things for myself, not waiting for the phone to ring, not waiting for Hollywood to give me an opportunity. And because of that, I've been able to get opportunities in Hollywood. For example, the thing that I told you guys before, I'm not allowed to talk about.
Yes.
Hush, hush.
Which was it, but even the book wouldn't have come about if and I also am grateful for Jeanette McCurdy's book, because she really kind of put that whole awareness on the map for a lot of people. I'd been doing like stuff like on my YouTube for a little bit before her book came out, but she was workshopping her one woman show, which ended up becoming her book. So she'd been doing that for like years before, and she was really working on herself. You can tell just by reading the book, right? So she's kind of a pioneer, and she deserves all the support. We don't even know each other. Like she followed me at one point. I think she does. I don't know. But like we've connected, and she's like hearted my stuff when I said, "Hey girl, like congrats on the whatever." And she said, "Thank you," I think. So it's like one of those things where it's like, I don't know you, but I am you.
Kindred spirits in a
way.
way.
It's like that thing of like, we have had different lives, but there's been some things that tether us together in some of that human experience. It's that like 1% of 1% kind of thing.
Right.
So do you relate to her story in many ways?
Well, I wasn't the abuse. Absolutely not. Like that abuse was just so garish to have to get through. It was very, very hard to get through that book, of course. But like in terms of me seeing similar kinds of stage parents around me that were doing things like that, that's what you then feel guilt by proxy, because it's like I was right there when Shia was going through what he was going through with his parents, and or like whoever else. Like I won't even name names, and it's just like, okay, like wow, I guess I'm lucky ? And like maybe I should just think about my life and just say, oh, it was so much better than this person's. But it's all kind of like the Wild West of child welfare. It's like nobody's really thinking about it in a way, but they are, like I said, they are kind of now. And again, I'm sorry, what was the question?
You're good. I mean, actually,
like
I was asking about Jeanette McCurdy, but I'm so curious because you've been mentioning Shia. I'm curious what you would have done differently.
Oh, it was the money thing. You were asking about the money.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
But yeah, I mean, with what you know about Shia now, what would you have done differently at the time?
I would have hugged him more, man. I would have like made him give me a hug. I don't know. He probably wouldn't have liked that, but he was like he was kind of a brat at times. We started when I was 14, which means that he was probably like 11 or 12 or like very, very, very young kid. We were oil and water. I mean, I was this like preppy girl from the East Coast, and I had a really thick accent in the pilot when I look back. And he was just this like wild Venice kid with like two-toned hair, and like they brought us in for the chemistry read, and it was like we couldn't have been more different. And they were like, "That's the show," and they were so smart because it was like they didn't care if we got along or not. It meant that our chemistry was authentically, that sibling rivalry existed from the jump. So whether it was stoked by the materials, or it was stoked by, executives being kind of like, like, hey, you guys are kind of funny. I don't know you can't explain it, but it's like a vibe that you have where it's kind of like, is this Shia's show? Is it the family show? And so it ended up becoming more of an ensemble show just by the nature of having to film at different times. So like being certain ages, like they would stagger our like, so again, we wouldn't be in the same storyline, so that I could have hours of filming and then he would have hours of filming. And that's how they would stagger us to be able to do like a full TV show.
Wow.
Otherwise it would be too hard to coordinate us being in the same like scenes all the time. So we ended up having two different shows. There was the Ren show, kind of like when you would watch it, I would have a storyline and then he would have one. And his were arguably like way funnier than mine. Mine were just more like the Lizzie McGuire, like I like a boy and blah, blah, blah. But that was what we had to do because mostly girls were watching Disney Channel at the time. And so that's what was unique about Even Stevens, was because he was really just like so talented for comedy. Sometimes I think like, God, I wish he would just be funny. Like I just wish that there would have been more, there would be enough joy. There would have been enough joy in his life for him to continue with comedy. But as we know, like a lot of comics are like plagued with depression and like a ton of darkness in their lives. So I can't speak to what would have helped, but I know that God, I mean, if you would put 40-year-old Christy in 16-year-old Christy's body, I would give him a hug, like a big hug then. Because
really
he
cool.
definitely needed one then, yeah.
Thank you to Liquid IV for sponsoring this portion of today's episode. Matt, which Summer Olympics events are you most looking forward to?
Probably the gymnastics, because that's what you want to watch.
Did you just take my answer?
Yeah.
Gymnastics is by far the most entertaining as a viewer. I feel like, well, I mean, they're all exciting because you're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? I feel like the race ones too, you know, when they're fighting tooth and nail, those can be exciting, but just most entertaining has to be gymnastics. And with the Summer Olympics in full swing, hydration is key for athletes and fans alike. Liquid IV is extraordinary hydration for physical endurance, mental clarity, and overall well-being. A single stick of Liquid IV delivers better hydration than water alone, with 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, plus 8 vitamins and nutrients. I can tell you guys, I take Liquid IV every single day. I personally like their sugar-free options. It's a great way to make you want to drink water because it tastes so good. Right now, I'm drinking the raspberry melon one, but I'm excited to try. They have a new sugar-free raspberry sherbet one, I believe, that I'm getting next. But I love the raspberry melon one so much. They taste really, really good. And if you live an active lifestyle or go outside a lot, especially in the summertime, like we said, it's really, really important to get your electrolytes in. And Liquid IV is my go-to way of doing that. Matt, what's your favorite Liquid IV flavor?
I like the peach flavored.
There's so many good flavors. You really cannot go wrong. I put 1 stick in 40 ounces, but it's recommended to put 1 stick in 16 ounces of water. Whatever strongness you like, you can tailor to you. It's the #1 powered hydration brand in America, and I truly, truly recommend it. Turn your ordinary water into extraordinary hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code UNPLANNED at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code UNPLANNED at liquidiv.com.
Finance wise though, like I said, like I didn't make that. I just started thinking about all the like nuances of how much I made. I didn't make that much. Arguably, there wasn't like a lot to invest. You don't make that much on Disney Channel in
Didn't it say
2001. Like it's not like it was High School Musical times, you know?
It said your net worth, you had mentioned on your YouTube, it said your net worth was like $3 million or something before, like from Kim Possible or something.
What?
I thought, okay,
All
in
lies.
one of
All
your
lies.
in one of your YouTube
All
videos,
lies. All lies.
you said in a YouTube video talking about finances and all of that, how your net worth according to the internet was $3 million, and you were like, I don't even have $1 million. Like I have student loans. Like I made $1 million one year and spent $1 million one year is what you said.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering correctly.
That's right.
Because you were, I don't know. I think you just, from what you had said in the video, it seemed like you never thought that the roles would stop coming.
Correct. Yes. I think like when you come off of a TV show, you're like, oh, I'm going to find my way. I'll figure it out. And your agents and managers are like, we're going to package you. You're going to do this and we'll get you in this room. And so you're just like trying to be super optimistic. And like I said, you're coming off of the bravado and the high of being told that you're like, you know, and I remember I dated somebody who had been on the show Freaks and Geeks, and then, you know, that show was really popular. It was Judd Apatow's first TV show that he'd ever done, and it was a huge cult classic. And, you know, this guy was an actor and then stopped working for a really long time, and so he was like, you know, you're not gonna like keep working, right? Like it's gonna be a while. And so you get on their show, and I was like, you're ridiculous. And I was like, I wish I would have stuck my foot in my mouth, because it's like, that's true. Like it takes a while, you know? And again, I left. I went to college immediately after. Like after even Steven stopped, I was like, bye. And I could have, should have, whatever, stayed and took whatever momentum was left and kept trying to find the next thing. But I didn't want to. I was kind of like, you know what? I guess I was blind to the idea of the privilege that I had. I don't know. I also didn't want to wait to live my life. And I still feel this way, as reflective of me kind of doing my own content now. I just don't want somebody to tell me how to live my life. Like, oh, you can't have kids because you're an actress. You know, like you have to look this way because you're an actress. You can't cut your hair and dye it because you're an actress. You can't get married and have a healthy marriage because you're an actress. Like you need to be on set and you need to do this and you do that. And it was just feeling like, and I didn't even want to live in LA. I didn't even travel. That's one thing I think I do regret from the 20s. I'm not bitter, I promise, but I do regret not just being like, you know what? I'm going to go to Europe. I have a little money, or I'm going to try to save money from residuals that come in, when those reruns happened. And I was like never thinking about, hey, I'm going to go like explore the world, because I was always like, I have to stay here because if the phone rings, I have to be here because I have to call and I can't leave. And I maybe I can go to New York, but then if I go to New York, maybe I could do a theater audition. It was like literally like that kind of tone. And it's like, no, like at least sometimes I think when I was 18, I was so much smarter than I was in most of my 20s. But at the same time, like, I feel like finally, after 8 years of sobriety and being a happy mom and a happy wife, like, I've come full circle. And I'm back to being that Ren Stevens character. Like that, she is that try hard, and she really does love her family. And, she understands that, she's got a lot of privilege, but at the same time, she's not perfect. It's really kind of poetic in that the person that I thought I lost, I've found again.
Obviously, you can't change the past, but if you could go back, are you glad that you went to college when you did? Do you wish you could have taken some of that momentum and used it to boost that career high you had for a little bit? Or are you glad that you took a step back and changed a lot of things in your life?
When we talk about, hey, if I look back and if I try this or I try that, like, it's super toxic for me to do that. Not that your question is, your question is really valid, because it's so easy to be like, well, what if I did that? But it is toxic because it sends me down the what if road. Ooh. And so it's kind of like, there's no conclusive evidence that would show anything. And I think when you get to the point where I've turned 40 in March, like, I'm starting to perceive time a lot different in that, like, oh, wow, I'm not going to live forever, and like, oh, wow, I'm aging, and like, that's cool. And how do I feel about that? And will I ever get to Europe? And like, and there's going to be a time when like your body isn't going to be as healthy. Like, you just start thinking really big thoughts, really important thoughts. And then you're like, wow, it really doesn't matter. Like any of that stuff that coulda, would've,
It's funny you bring that up because I voice those deep thoughts all the time, and Abby's like, "Can you please
stop giving me a crisis every single day?" He's like, we probably lived like 30%. I'm like, stop with the numbers.
Oh my gosh, there's this calendar. That the calendar with the boxes?
I don't, but I think about this every day where I'm like, I just turned 26, and I think like, I probably won't make it to 100, so I've lived over a fourth of my life.
He tells me that constantly.
Okay, so then this is the most macabre thing that you could buy. But there's like this calendar of your life that basically suggests that most people live, I think, to be like, I don't know, like 80 something, 85, 86. So it's got a week for every single week of your life. And you're meant to cross off when you first get it all of the weeks of the life that you've already lived, and then you've only got this many boxes left.
Oh my gosh.
So if you were to buy it, maybe you could stop having to bug her, but
okay.
You could give me a crisis.
I think I want to get that calendar though, because I think it puts life into perspective, especially because not every single day is guaranteed. Like, I could die in a car accident tomorrow, How do I know that's not going to happen?
And when you have kids, especially multiple kids too, I mean, it's just like, the stress compounds on like what you're going to leave them, and like, what do they remember of you, and how do you protect them? And so yeah, I just think like community becomes more and more important to me as I realize that the days are short. What is it? The days are long and the years are short. Yeah. That's what they talk about, like with early parenting.
Yes.
But it stays true. It stays true.
Because I mean, you're a mom now. You have 2 wonderful children. How is that been? How has mom life been?
I would say that being a mom saved my life. I think it gave me purpose outside of this identity as an actor. And so, it's kind of, it wasn't something that I thought I was valuable enough to do. I think like me getting that like gift to be able to do it with a really amazing partner is what I never thought I would have. I tried really hard in other relationships, and it was just like failure after failure. And having the kind of partner I have in my husband, and then now we have our Podco, which is our podcast network, and it's like we do everything together. So I love that you guys do the podcast and do everything together. It's so refreshing that we have. The mom and pop shop is literally digital now. It's like,
That's so true.
That's crazy.
that's what it is. It's like, I know so many husband and wife teams, especially in media. Because it's like, you guys both benefit. It's cheaper. Like, you can trust each other. You've got each other's backs. You've got 4 eyes, right? Like, it's great. It's fantastic.
I know managers that are husband and wife teams. I know so many creators that are husband
It's
and wife
so
teams.
cute. I
And then
love it.
even like, I'm pretty sure our tax guy is a husband and wife team. And our
Even in Arizona, do you know all those signs on the highway that say husband and wife law firm?
Yes. If you live in Arizona, you'll always see this big billboard that says husband and wife law firm. I don't know how they're doing that.
It's called
It's
husband
called
and wife?
the husband and wife law firm.
Huh.
I hope they're not divorce attorneys or
I
something.
know, right? Oh, no, that would be
so
bittersweet.
Yeah, they switch into that one. Oh, that would be.
You
I shouldn't have said
mentioned
that.
you mentioned something though that made me kind of sad, and you just said how you didn't feel valuable enough to be a mom, and I'm wondering why. Like, why?
When I got pregnant, I was pretty burnt out. You know, I was trying to make ends meet with, I was doing a lot of like I would go to different cities and do like acting classes for kids. And I wasn't happy doing that because it was triggering and these were things I hadn't handled. And then I was away from my partner. And then I would be doing like small, weird movies that weren't really, my heart wasn't in it. And I was doing it so that I could get enough money because when you do movies, they pay into your health insurance. And so I was trying to keep health insurance. And so I would do like Lifetime movies, although the Lifetime, and they were like smaller than Lifetime movies, or they were like horror movies and stuff like that. So I was like, I wasn't thinking of myself as an artist anymore or an actor. It was just more or less like, what do I got to do? Like, let me just work. I just like acting and I just want to work. I don't mind being on set. But then I even did Comic-Cons. Actually, I did Comic-Cons for a while and I love Comic-Cons. I just don't want to do them now. Like, it's just a lot of work and the money is not as good as if I were on maybe like some sort of a TV show, you know what I mean? Like that would probably be like, you know, Walking Dead or something. Like certain kinds of TV shows make a lot of money. And if Kim Possible had a reboot, Comic-Cons would probably pay a lot more money. But for me, they're not. At the moment, I loved the fans. I loved everybody. But I was just like, I can't do this for a whole weekend and be away from my family kind of thing. So that's kind of, and I was also like pregnant at times. I would do Comic-Cons and I did audiobooks. I did a lot of like, I guess you would call them odd jobs. You know what I mean? Before I found my way to just do social stuff. And so I just kind of wasn't in a good place with it. I just didn't feel like, I felt like so much of it was out of my control. And yet I had gone to school and it ended up taking me 12 years to finish, but I have a big production background and then had my film degree from Columbia. So I was like, oh man, I should be doing this myself. Like, how can I use my know-how, right? And my sensibilities as a person who grew up on sets to like make stuff. And so weirdly, just kind of like you guys, you weirdly slipped with TikTok and like this stuff. It kind of all lined up eventually to be like, well, everybody eats and we should lean into the nostalgia of what all your Comic-Con fans are like, where are you now? What are you doing now? And it's like, cool. What if you did this with other people they have that question for? So it's kind of like he and I put our heads together and for some reason we always do it in a hot tub. We happen to have a hot tub and we were like, Christy's Kitchen throwback. Yeah. And so it's like we vibed and it was such a great process to have him as that partner. But we'd already had, what is it, 2 kids at that point? So it's like, yeah, I mean, like, man, we struggled for a while, you know, but again, I was at a dark place, but the pregnancy brought me out of it in a way that just, I never wanted that to end. And I've never looked back. Like that's, like I said, that's changed my life.
And meeting your husband, how did that happen? You keep mentioning
Wait,
him.
before we talk about the husband,
Okay.
respectfully, because this was a long time ago, were there any Disney Channel crushes
yeah.
on set?
Yeah, I dated Shawn Ashmore, who was the boy Brad in Cadet Kelly. And he was a sweet...
During filming?
Yeah, like right after filming for a while. I would say like maybe like 6 months. And then and then it was like very, very innocent.
Sweet.
Very, very sweet and very innocent. He was just a good guy. And then he was like he was like Iceman in the X-Men movies. So he started like building a career outside of like, because he was a Canadian actor and he kind of started making his way in Hollywood and stuff. And so, I don't know, I think I got nervous and like didn't want to be in the big leagues with somebody who was like doing like big movies and stuff. I was just like kind of a shy girl. I was very shy, but I mean, I had a big crush on him when we were filming, and then I was like, amazing that we actually started dating.
No way.
But I haven't seen him since. He's obviously married with kids, and it's like he's a great guy. Him and his whole family are just, he's from a good family.
Who do you keep in touch with from those days?
Okay, so like I had my 40th birthday, and because of my podcasts, I've really touched base with so many different people. If you go on my Instagram, you can see on my birthday party, like I have this like scroll of like so many cool folks that I had there, and that's like not even everybody that was there. I had some really just like across the board, like Nickelodeon and Disney people, like that you would like totally know. And like you would be there and you'd be like, wait, this person, wait, that person, wait, this person. And it was all because of the podcasts and because of the community that I was trying to create, like for better and for worse. Like we weren't all connected to each other before that. And so a lot of people had pockets of knowing each other, but then just that night alone on my 40th was like such a euphoric experience of like, wow, everything's come together so that everyone can kind of just celebrate, you know, in the same space. So
that's really cool.
Just that simple. Like and that's the thing is like, again, not only am I an open book, like if somebody were to reach out to me and be like, hey, Christy, I really just kind of want to talk personally about this experience I had. Like my door's always open. I've had like people, young performers who've had issues with their employers or like issues with their mentors, and they've like reached out to me confidentially through DM, and I'm like, what do you need? Like, can I help? Do you need inspiration? Do you need a pep talk? Like, do you need resources? So I'm kind of the real deal when it comes to that stuff. It's been interesting because sometimes people get it wrong, you know, on the internet, and it's been frustrating because I just feel like I said in the beginning, like I stopped vulnerable because after the Quiet on Set documentary came out, I felt like very exposed. And because that was a podcast, as we all monetize our podcasts, it was like, oh God, I feel kind of yucky now. Like this whole thing feels yucky and I can't do this anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
Why yucky?
I don't know. I got a lot of flack online for monetizing my podcast. And I was like, but I have to keep producing it. And it's not really making that much money. Like it really wasn't. So I'm doing my own thing. I'm really excited about Annalisa Vanderpool and Mai's podcast. It's called Big Names. And we've been doing it for just about a year. And it's small, but like it's fun. And like we're having fun together. And she's going to start coming to Austin where I live. And we're going to start doing crazy fun vlogs. That's and just awesome. Like vibing. People want us to come like do live shows. Do you guys do live shows?
We've actually never done one.
You should do live shows. Write in, guys, if you want them to do a live show.
Oh my gosh.
I would melt. I'd be like, I'm so sorry.
And then you're gonna sing
you
Peter
guys
Pan.
Showed up and I'm just here. And
he's gonna come in from like a Peter Pan like harness. Like
I have no doubt that Matt could be entertaining. I just doubt myself.
This is completely a joke, but I was telling Abby, I'm like, because Abby doesn't want to do live shows. Like I mean, I don't want to speak for you.
I don't want to. It's that I just don't. I want to do something that people want to see, and like if they are paying for tickets, like I want to feel like I have something to offer.
You don't feel valuable. I'm reading that you don't feel valuable.
I need to talk about this. I just want to feel like I have something to offer them for their time and their, you know what I mean.
You'd have to come up with like, I don't know.
I know Matt was saying he could sing and I'll dance to his songs.
No. I was joking. I was like, we pull a reverse Uno card and they show up and it's actually a concert for my music.
Yeah.
We would never do that.
Although your music could be in it.
I mean, I don't know. That was just a big joke. But like, if I were ever to tour for my music, I would want it to be because people actually, if it would be for people that actually wanted that. We would never
force it on people.
We'd never fake people out and be like, it's a podcast live show. Just kidding. I'm performing my original
Bring
music.
out the guitar.
Man, I think it'd be fun. I would like to see that. Really you got to give them variety.
Maybe someday.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh crap! What were we even talking about? How do we even get on the
live
show? What just happened? Gosh dang it!
We were talking about Disney crushes, and
then we got onto.
No, now we're gonna talk about your current crush, which has been going on for a long time.
Oh yes, the current crush.
You met in college.
We did. Well, I was 26 and he was 27 because I had left.
Oh yes.
I had left at 19 to do Beauty and the Beast on Broadway.
As Belle?
Uh-huh.
my gosh.
Because Disney was like, oh, you're KP and you're this and you're that. And like people know because my stuff was in reruns. But like still the kids were like thinking it was new because it was new to them. And so I was still kind of relevant in that way. And so even though I was like 19 and was like, okay, cool. Let's do this.
That's amazing.
It was amazing. Growing up, sort of doing theater, I'd started very young doing that stuff. So it was sort of like, that was like the pinnacle of anything that I could have thought I would have gotten to be able to do. But yeah, I did that for like 8 months.
I was going to ask, it was probably a long run. That's a long
They
time to be
extended
doing that.
It was, yeah, it was wild. It was really wild. And I was very tired. I was burnt out. That was the first
Right.
time after those 8 months that I was burnt out. And then at that point, that was actually right before the psychic situation. That psychic situation that is on my YouTube. If you Google, there's like one video. That one went viral. And then the other one about my money went viral.
No, okay, I've seen the money one, but what happened with the psychic?
Oh God, Jesus. Okay. Basically, a psychic came to the stage door when I was Belle, and she was like, your whole life is going to be ruined and you're unlucky in love. And I had had my heart broken by my college, boyfriend or whatever. And so I gave her a call because I was like, oh, she's so forward. Like she really cares. What? So I basically started to get codependent on the psychic for, I want to say 5 months, 4 months or something.
Wow.
Yeah. And so basically it was basically like I had this relationship or a friendship. So I thought with somebody who would spiritually tell me like, this isn't good for you and this is what's going to happen. And then it became more and more fearful and there was more and more money involved with it. So I'm actually really open and honest about it. But what I've come to understand is that unfortunately I was kind of targeted by somebody who was like, kind of, a con person. Yeah. So that's what happened. And it can happen. Like, I think, gosh, I feel like I'm almost lucky that I didn't get like some other things that happened to
She
people.
made you pay her?
Yeah, that was it, right? It was like, well, we have this crystal and, I've got to buy it and I've got to bless it and I've got to do all this stuff to it to make sure that your future will be intact. But, if you don't pay me X amount of money, like, and it was like, $40,000 or something like that.
40
It was
grand?
insane. It was
My
insane. But at the time, I just thought, okay, well, this is the cost of doing business and I'll be blessed by doing this. And like, that's what I'm saying. My financial fluency, which goes into the other, the other YouTube video or whatever, it wasn't well enough, developed by my stage parents.
And you're young.
Yeah, I was 19, but I was a young 19. Because again, like I may had, I might have been able to act older and go to clubs and do whatever but it was like my brain upstairs was like super young.
Did your parents or
like
anybody
your
know that you were paying $40,000?
They ended up knowing. They did. It was so embarrassing. And like I had to like tell them and it was all very embarrassing. But I mean, whatever. Like it's kind of cringy. It's my cringiest moment.
It's an interesting story.
That's
other people
sad.
have contacted me and they've been
I'm
like,
sure.
I'm so glad you opened up about this because this happened to me. And
I'm sure.
you can't.
The more that I've learned about life, I feel like things that we're like the most shameful of, like there's so many more people that are in the exact same boat, but they're just silent about it too. And so good on you for you're like, this is the most embarrassing
I have to laugh
thing I've
about it
done.
because it's wild.
And
Yeah.
putting it out there, and
Ay.
I feel the same way about a lot of things that we say. I'm like, I know there's other people out there that maybe need to hear this, but
What are the warning signs though to look out for? Because I'm guessing the day that you guys met, she probably wasn't like, hey, I know all this stuff about you, give me 40 grand. It probably wasn't like that, right?
No. I mean, she got more than that from me, right? Like I'm sure it was like, it was little things like $200 here, $200 there, like little things. It's just wild. So yeah, I mean, look, these people exist and usually they don't come to you, right? So like real psychics, I think like don't ask for money, or if they do, it's in a very specific way. So I would probably like do your research on that. I don't know how you do your research on that, but they never come to you like that and they never give you a card. It's like they're very private about it, and some of them don't even like want the gift, like some of them are like very shy about it. Sometimes it's just like, oh, my family friend is a person who says they talk to angels or they do numerology. Like there's some things that people just, friends of friends or family members, and that's kind of how it happens, is like you have this wise person with these gifts, these intuitions that you can like access through your family network. I don't know. I mean, it's very strange. It's a very strange world that I am not in anymore. And like so much so that like I even feel weird about having the CoStar app on my like it's like zodiac stuff. It's just basic zodiac stuff. And like I try not to like put too much effort into thinking about it, but it was me at 19.
Thank you to DoorDash for sponsoring this portion of today's video. I DoorDash my food probably twice a week. It is so convenient, you guys, especially if I'm trying to, clean and take care of my kids and do all these things like multitasking. I suck at multitasking. So having food delivered to me whenever I'm trying to multitask and do a lot of stuff at once, oh my gosh, it's a game changer. DoorDash makes it so convenient too, because whenever you're like, oh, I want to get that same thing that I ordered at that one restaurant that one time, you can go into DoorDash and just with the tap of a button, you can order the same thing that you've ordered before because it remembers your order history.
Yeah, that's very, very convenient. And DoorDash also offers something called DashPass, which is an exclusive membership from DoorDash that gets you unlimited $0 delivery fees on eligible orders and members-only deals and discounts. So we are actually proud DashPass members.
Indeed, we are.
And it has saved us so much money and so much time, convenience as a parent or just as a busy person in general.
It's so worth it, you guys. Like, you pay a little bit of money to get your food delivered straight to your doorstep so you don't have to leave the house. Oh my gosh. And especially when you're traveling and you don't have a car, or maybe you do have a car but you just don't have time to go to the store and get what you need. We've even DoorDash groceries before, so it is the move. We should have become DashPass members a long time ago, but we just recently became members.
We would have saved a lot of money.
And yeah, we would have saved ourselves a ton of money.
Get the best deal and exclusive items for your favorite brands like Taco Bell, Popeyes, and Ulta Beauty even. Order on DoorDash and save big during Summer of DashPass. Sign up today. Plus, you'll be getting $0 delivery fees and lower service fees with a DashPass membership. DashPass benefits apply only to eligible orders. Terms apply.
I know you mentioned having kids really helped with your mental health and everything. Was marriage a part of that as well?
For sure. I mean, it also helped his mental health too. I think, my husband's a Marine veteran and he's been deployed, and he's an amazing human being for his service to our country. And I understand him now more than ever for a reason I cannot say. The reason, guys, is because I did a project and I can't talk about it.
Oh,
that's why.
Matt's sitting here
say the thing.
Yeah,
that probably people can deduce, but at the same time, I'm not saying anything. But I'm very excited about the fact that there's more connectivity to my husband's experience in life.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love being connected to him in all things. So that's kind of like what's brought us together: the kids, the business, the life experiences, stuff like that. It's like so intimate at a certain point where I think there's a big difference between codependency too, because I've been in codependent relationships with the psychic, with my mom, with other boyfriends and fiancés and stuff like that. And where we excel is like having our own identities, having our own like dreams and aspirations and personalities, and then coming together and then making each other better. So there's been times when we've been through really hard times financially, and we now can spot each other a mile away and see a crisis from like a month or two down the road and like come together and be like, okay, how are we going to divert this? And we just know how to we know how to be the heads of our family. It's like when we met, we weren't like that. We were like two drunk kids in love, like, like making out. Like our first date, we went to some birthday party. We had pretty much met the week before. We had a coffee and I was like, oh, my friend's having a birthday party. Would you go down to the Lower East Side and be my date? I was very brave, but I didn't want to lose him.
You asked him out?
I did.
That's
I was like
epic.
Very nervous too, because
it's that Kim Possible energy.
It was that KPE. And so, yeah, I mean, we had a great time and immediately hit it off. I mean, we were inseparable ever since then. And yeah, I'm happy. I am. I love my husband. 13 years.
That's incredible.
How long have you guys have known each other obviously for your whole lives?
No.
We've been together 8 years. We've been married for almost 5. By the time this episode's out, it'll be 5 years.
Congrats. 5 years is a big deal.
Thank you.
We just celebrated our 10.
That's that's a big one.
And by the way, sometimes they say that 5 years can be some sort of weird time, but I think because you guys have young kids that you will not feel it.
Yes.
And I feel like that really keeps you on the same wavelength of and you're such a person that leans in. I can tell that you're not like the kind of person that's like, I'm going to be over here in this room and you can, you know what I'm saying? Like
We're attached to that.
Do you like, so we were talking about mom and pop shops and how the new mom and pop shop is digital, which I've never heard that before. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're onto something there. Do you like working with your husband?
If I could, I would work with him all the time forever, because I know he has my back. I feel like I've had a lot of people get commission on things just by picking up a phone, like agents and stuff. And it was because somebody called in and they're like, would Christy be interested in this? And it's like, but you didn't do anything. You didn't call on my behalf. It's like, I know tons of people in the entertainment industry that are literally just paying their agents because they got a phone call and they picked up. And it's like, what? This is so busted. And then you have taxes. So this was another reason why I made and spent $1 million. I had a business manager in 1 year when I was, 20, coming out of the Broadway Beauty and the Beast. And it was like, I had a book deal and I had a record deal coming off of Broadway. And it was like, I did not allocate that the proper way because I had the business manager and I had the taxes and I had a lawyer's fee and an agent fee and a manager fee. And it was like all this stuff. And it was like not properly dispersed in a way that it just wasn't handled right, And so I think then you start to think to yourself, I can't trust anybody, and I don't even want to make money, It's just like you start to get very So the fact that I have somebody that's in the trenches with me who has actually been in trenches.
Yeah. Oh my God.
He's like a real soldier, we're soldiering forward together and we're very resilient in this way. So, and you know what? It's actually kind of strange. Him being a veteran and me being a child actor, there are some strange parallels and I can't exactly explain it, but it's something that I'm starting to really truly see the reason why we make sense, the reason why I'm so happy with somebody who's been to war, and literally had to see some really crazy, awful things and who has seen death and now comes back and is a civilian. And think about that. Whereas I was a kid, but then I wasn't a kid. And then I felt then I wasn't anything. So it's this strange kind of fall from grace where then you're who am I now kind of thing. And so he had to go through that too. And then we met in a screenwriting class of undergrad, but he happened to be 27 and I was 26. That's how we met. He really wanted to be here and you guys spoke on the phone and he really liked you.
Oh, that's so nice. I'm bummed. I know he was putting your kids down for bed. So it ended up not working out.
Parent duties come first.
But yeah, I mean, you're parents, so you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. We I wasn't going to Rochambeau, but we were I was no, I'm going to go. And he's like, go, you got to go. So, whatever.
Well, tell him thank you.
He's sleeping right now.
I will. He's asleep right now.
If you told me to tell him to thank you for your service, that thing, they don't actually like being told that. Did you know that?
Wait, really?
Oh, shoot.
I think maybe it's a Marine thing. So if somebody comes up to Brendan and says, thank you for your service, he says, thank you for paying your taxes. And it's kind of this funny, kind of flippant way of being I did what I did because I chose to do it. And I did it and I don't think about it kind of thing, which is when you think about it, the mark of truly a brave person, where it's they don't want the recognition. They did it for their own reasons. He was also 19. He enlisted the day after 9/11. And so it was such a crazy critical time in our country.
Something you mentioned that it kind of stuck out to me and I wanted to ask more about it. You were saying, instead of saying your mom, you said your stage parent. And so I'm curious why use the term stage parent instead of mom?
Man, you're so good, you guys. You caught that. I think that I'm starting to have sort of an understanding that who I have now is my mom and who the person was then was the stage parent. I used to say that my mom could have, there was a pyramid and I said on the top is mom, friend, and manager. And it was pick two at any given time. You can't be everything. And therefore I'm missing out on one of those. She couldn't be everything, right? So in dealing with that disappointment, I think now I'm identifying as, okay, she was the stage parent and she had limitations as the stage parent because there's other people out there that are stage parents as well. And they don't see the blind spots. They think oh, I can fix this and my kid's not going to get preyed upon or my kid's not going to lose their money or my kid's not going to have residual damage from not succeeding when they go to college. It's just there's so much that can go wrong. Sometimes I'm but why would you even want to subject your kid to the possibility of any of it? But at the same time, it's not my kid. So I have so much sympathy for them to have to put themselves through that too.
It seems like from the outside looking in, it seems like you almost have those distinctions because I'm guessing things with your mom are good now. I'm assuming that it's worked out in the end, but maybe there was a time where things weren't so good.
Yeah, I didn't talk to my mom for like a year. I didn't talk to my entire family for a year because I thought they were like mismanaging my money. So I think I got really attitude-y about that. And then I was like, I'm peacing out. Like, I don't want to talk to you guys anymore. And I'm in this relationship with this guy. And I just kind of like went from one codependent relationship to another. And I never really fixed anything. And so I didn't talk to my family for like a whole year when I was 21.
Did these guys try to tell you what to do with your money?
That one did. Yeah. That one was like from a really wealthy family. And he was like living on his father's money. So it was kind of weird that it was like a trust fund person. And he was just like, you don't know how much money you have and you should know and you should break away from them. And it was like, okay, but now you're living off of me. So I just, like I said, I never really feel like it was easy to find community in LA. And so I think that's why I'm like always kind of grossed out by LA.
How did he take advantage of you?
I rented him a Ferrari for his birthday one year. We were only together for a year and 4 months, but I rented him for a Ferrari. When he broke up with me, I moved him out and I like bought him like an Hermes ashtray because he smoked cigars. And I was like, is there anything else I can do? Like to make it more comfortable for you to move and break up with me? Like, it was like, who was I? Like, I would never want my daughters to be this way. You know, I would never want them to feel like, God, just like apologizing for oneself. But I'm not that person, I guess. I think I've been loved enough now to like feel like so whole, and I don't know, it's really deep.
Did your parents help connect you with maybe a financial advisor or somebody that could help?
I only had one business manager, and that person was not decent, I feel like.
Really?
I feel like when I look back, they really weren't trying to help me. They would sit me down and have these conversations with me about my money, and they would be like, making it like very, very difficult. And I was not dumb. Like, I'd gone to college, but it was like, I don't know if I was tired or I just didn't understand it, but like, it wasn't fun. Like those conversations where he was like, so this is why you have to show a loss for your S Corp and like this, and then look at this Excel. And he would make it almost like needlessly complicated. So then I'd be like, well, I need you. Versus like, I'm going to make sure that you know this to the point where you don't need me anymore.
Yeah.
And so after the whole psychic thing happened, I remember he was on the phone, my manager at the time, and then my lawyer was on the phone, and they were like, Christy, are you okay? And I was like, no, guys, I'm fine, because I didn't trust them. And I was like, I'm fine. I just want to make this purchase, like just, free up this money for me, this $40,000 or whatever, which was huge for me because I'd never had control of my money. And I was like, just let me do this and I'll be okay. And they're like, really, Christy? And I was like, yeah, like just mind your own business. Like you guys don't, I was kind of rebelling.
Hey, real quick, I don't want to take much of your time. I just wanted to thank you all for being here. It means the world to Abby and I that you're watching or listening to our show, whether you're doing laundry or in the car on the way to work. Thank you for being here. I hope that you've learned something. We really have a lot of fun putting on the show, and it's unreal that we get to do this. So thank you. Your support means the world to us. If you wouldn't mind sharing this episode with someone, if you learned something, that would be awesome. But if not, just enjoy. We're like really appreciate you guys being here. Seriously. So, okay, back to the episode. You're awesome. Thank you guys. During that time, I guess you had to call the bank and say, hey, my parents no longer have access to my accounts. I don't want them to.
I fired my mom.
Whoa.
Yeah. So my mom technically worked for me, and I fired her because she paid herself a salary, which is pretty standard, I think, when it comes to trying to show like a loss when you have a corporation, because she was my employee. Everything that she had could be like her own tax deduction, and but then my mom had like a separate apartment, and it was like, oh, well, I want to be here in town with you, but you should have your own apartment and I'll have mine. And it was like, wait, we should have bought a house. Like, why didn't we buy a freaking house? And then we could have figured it out, but like we never did that. And so it was just kind of frustrating, like with some of those things that just weren't, maybe she obviously didn't know, right? Like she just didn't know what to do.
It must have been a very emotional conversation to fire your mom.
Oh, it was horrible. That whole like season of my life because I was dating this person. Like my dad got involved and he like flew out and he was like, what are you doing? You know, it was very weird and very, very, very awful, which is what made that breakup that much worse. This is the Ferrari guy, because it was like, I just left my family for you. And now I'm out in LA and like I have nobody. So I had to like basically go back to my family with my tail between my legs and be like, he broke up with me, and so sad.
Did you have anybody else out there at that time?
No, not really.
Where was your family? Where were they when all of this was going on?
My brother was always there for me. So like when I started having like little bits of money problems and stuff, my brother was always the one, because he's in finance. I would call him and I'd be like, you know, how do I get through this? And he'd be like, okay, well, you need to be on this budget. You should just try to do this. But he was busy. He was living his life. He was like working for the World Bank at the time and traveling to all these different places in the world. So we were close, but not like close enough where I knew to lean on him or something. But we traveled together a few times. Like I went to India with him. He always tried to help me. My brother was always like, that's why it's like, we're still so close. Because he just has always fought for us to be like an actual sibling relationship. Because he knew, I'm like kind of cry, you guys. God, stupid. But like he just always knew that like I needed him, you know. But like he never wanted to try. He tried sometimes to be really strict with me, and that never worked. And I think finally we've found a way where it's like, we'll have business questions about our podcast network, and he's so good at finance. Like he's such a boss with what he does. He does private equity and emerging markets. He made me memorize that, but he does even bigger things than that. And he's like helping us with Podco, like scaling up, and like the fact that I can now love on his nephews and my girls. And that's why we're visiting them, you know, in Nashville frequently. So yeah, we're really close, and I would be remiss to say that he wasn't a part of that. It's just that he wasn't like flying in to see me as much as maybe that could have happened.
That's really sweet that you have your brother in that. Like you're even in Nashville right now. We just got to Nashville today and kind of just
spoiler alert.
that we're like all here. But I love that. I love that he was there for you. What would you say to somebody who might be in that same situation where they, I don't know, they're struggling on knowing how to manage their money, or maybe they feel like they don't have community and they don't know what to do. Like maybe they're in a bad relationship with someone who's taking advantage of them in some way. What would you say to somebody who's going through that?
I think the best thing that you can do is look inward. And like in looking inward, you have to find your higher power, and you have to find the strength within yourself. Like if there was anything that I would want to teach my girls when they start becoming young women, and I know my husband will do that too, but I really want them to understand their value from a young age, so that there's no confusion about that, and that they don't waste any time. You know, I think like when people are hurting, we waste a lot of time. We waste a lot of time on comparing ourselves to others, and we waste a lot of time in thinking about the toxic what ifs. And so really the girls just need to live in the present moment. I mean, the longer that we can live in the present moment, the more fulfilling our lives will feel, I'm assuming. I'm not saying I do it. I just think that like, if you have a running head start on this pathology as a younger person, how great would that be? So that's what I want for them, and I would want that for anybody.
Did you turn to, I know obviously there was the thing with the psychic, but was there any spiritual awakening that you had, or any sort of like place where you found purpose? I'm curious what that was for you at that time, or even now, you know?
I have spiritual experiences when I'm in the present moment, and it's not that often, because I'm trying to constantly build my social media following, and I'm always trying to push to like, you know, have 1 million followers on Instagram, or like now I'm trying to do affiliate links and stuff like that, which I actually really love doing that stuff. But there's only green lights. There's never like, whereas when you're in the Hollywood industry traditionally, there's only red lights, maybe some yellow that quickly turn to red. But with social media, it's all green lights. You are your own boss. You are your own destiny. So like for somebody who's like a toxic tryhard, sometimes you can be like, okay, no, I don't want to be toxic. I want to be really doing this from a place of like empowerment rather than like desperation or something. So that's kind of where I'm at, if I'm being really honest. But I do love working with my husband. I love our podcasts. I think are creating something really cool.
That's so cool. Well, I love that you have your own podcast network and company, and that you have your own podcast. Where all can people find you on social media?
I mean, Podco has its own Instagram, but I obviously have my Instagram. So please, if I haven't completely repelled you from all of my honesty, please come see me at the Christy Carlson Romano on Instagram. I think it's Christy Carlson Romano on TikTok. And I'm also on LTK, but my YouTube is my name. But right now, the only thing that's there, well, there's vulnerables and there's like all this like back catalog of stuff. But my focus is on big names because I moved big names to its own channel, but now I've moved it back to CCR, like to my YouTube, so that we can like really test out this new format where me and Annalisa Vanderpool, who's an actress that was in That's So Raven for a long, long time. She's the redhead in that show. Okay.
Chelsea.
Yes, Chelsea Daniels. Is that her last name?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Big fan of.
So she's this like, she was also Belle on Broadway.
No way.
You're like, we have a lot in common.
Yes, we really do. And we grew up together too back in the day. So it was kind of like, cool, like let's go have some fun and film it. And so that's what we're going to do. And
Fun.
yeah, that's it. We're just going to live in the light and have fun and I don't know, see what comes.
Well, it's been wonderful talking with you. We'll let you go off to
Sleep.
go to sleep because it's like really late. But
I've literally, my
Yeah.
husband called me like a couple times.
oh my
scared.
gosh, oh, I'm so
Let him
sorry.
know you're
Okay, you better go. Well, we'll all go to bed.
Okay.
And thank you guys for watching. We really appreciate you being here. And this is crazy that we get to do this. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank you,
guys.
Christy.
Thank you guys.